Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the DFS show. Sorry for canceling yesterday's show. I've had a real difficult time with my laptop over the last couple days. Literally couldn't get it to charge. I was running daily face-off off my phone for a couple days, which was absolutely brutal. But we're back up and running. We're at full speed again today. So again, welcome back to the DFS show. If you haven't been here before, I break down each slate game by game. Tonight we have a 7-game slate. It was supposed to be 9, 2 games canceled or postponed, I should say, due to COVID-19. So 7-game slate. It's a really good slate. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to answering any of your guys' questions. So let's get right into it here. So the first game of the night is the Chicago Blackhawks and the Florida Panthers in Florida. Kevin Lankinen goes for Chicago in his NHL debut. They continue to rotate through their goalies, trying to find out which one is the best. I think the answer that they're going to probably find out is that none of them. So I think the Panthers are obviously in a pretty decent spot here. And then it's Sergei Bobrovsky's season debut today. So interested to see how he plays. Had a pretty tough year last year. Hopefully he gets back on track this year for the Florida Panthers. And all reports are that he missed almost all the training camp, got back on the ice last week, and has looked terrific. So hopefully that remains the case. Obviously, Tampa Bay and Dallas still postponed because Dallas is still overcoming their COVID-19 issues. Washington and Pittsburgh, we've got Casey Smith going again. Tristan Jarry seemed to have lost his grip on the number 1 job almost immediately. So Casey Smith goes again. Vitek Vanacek goes for the Washington Capitals again. He looked really good in his debut. Only allowing 1 goal against the Sabres. The Flyers and the Sabres have a rematch after the Sabres blew the Flyers out last night. We don't know for sure who is going to start for Buffalo at this time. Linus Ullmark is dealing with a personal issue, so it remains to be seen whether or not he starts. Honestly, it'll probably get confirmed during this live stream. So we might get some news while we're live here. So, but if Linus Ullmark is still out with that personal issue, I expect Carter Hutton to go back to back. Looked pretty strong last night. But the Flyers going with Brian Elliott, even though they pulled Carter Hart early in the game. A little bit surprised there. But Senators host the Jets. We've got Matt Murray, who is likely, obviously, because DJ Smith is not confirming goalies, but he was in the starters net and was the first goalie off the ice this morning. So 99% sure that Matt Murray goes for the Senators. And Laurent Brossoit goes for the Jets after Connor Hellebuyck faced about 90 shots against the Maple Leafs last night. A couple more games here. Georgiev goes again for the Rangers against Mackenzie Blackwood, who's been absolutely outstanding through 2 starts, 138 goals against average, 954 save percentage for Blackwood. So he's looking really strong. Even, the Devils look like they might be in trouble when Corey Crawford retired. Turns out not so much. The Detroit Red Wings host the Columbus Blue Jackets after losing to them yesterday in a MLK Day matinee. Jonathan Bernier expected to start against Elvis Merzlikins. As I mentioned, the Predators and Hurricanes both canceled. And then the nightcap is the LA Kings hosting the Colorado Avalanche. It will be Cal Peterson's season debut. Pretty brutal matchup for you to start your first game of the season. And Philip Grubauer goes again for the Avalanche. A little bit of injury news to get to, just so you guys are all caught up if you haven't been on DFO all day. The big news, Kasperi Kapanen makes his Penguins debut. It's not confirmed, but it looks highly likely that he'll be on the first line with Sidney Crosby, so that's good news for Kapanen. Patrick Laine's out once again for the Jets. Other than that, nothing too crazy. And Andre Burakovsky out for the Colorado Avalanche. We'll get to all of that stuff here in a little bit. So let me pull up today's show. So at the very top of my stacks for today is Winnipeg 1. So this is one that's definitely worth keeping an eye on. The really cool thing about today's slate is that every game starts at 7 o'clock. So we'll be able to kind of get all the information in, and you can go in and change any of your lineups based on the information we get in warmups. And of course, follow dailyfaceoff.com on Twitter for that. But anyways, what's interesting about Winnipeg 1 is it looks like Andrew Kopp is going to start there. He finished last night's game on the top line, but we've seen Kyle Connor in that role, for the better part of the last year. So there's a really good chance that Kyle Connor's on that top line tonight. So check on that in warmups. And if that's the case, that makes Winnipeg 1 even more appealing. Their numbers would improve drastically with Connor instead of Andrew Kopp. And then their 5v5 score would skyrocket and make them, an even bigger favorite on this slate. So keep an eye on that one. I really like Winnipeg 1. I played them last night. Unfortunately, they couldn't cash, but they were all around it all night. They put a lot of pressure on the Maple Leafs. Frederik Andersen played really well. So, they had a lot of shots, just not a lot of goals. So I think I'm going back to Winnipeg 1 definitely tonight. Really good matchup with the Senators. New York 2 looks really appealing tonight. Artemi Panarin and Ryan Strome is still really cheap after, kind of a sluggish start, 4,700. And Alexis Lafreniere, just 3,300. Gotta love what you're getting with Lafreniere at 3,300. I mean, first overall pick this year, playing on a line with Panarin. Absolutely love this spot for New York 2. Absolutely love Lafreniere tonight. Colorado 1, obviously always a good play when Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen are all together. Really good matchup with the Kings tonight. Obviously, they're going to see a lot of Kopitar, but we'll get to all of that later. So let's break down these first couple games here. We will start with Florida and Chicago. I think that it's pretty obvious. Chicago doesn't really have a lot to work with. So I like Florida in this spot. It looks like Florida 1 is going to see a lot of the first and third line of the Blackhawks. Same goes for the second line. My preference in this game would be Florida 1. They haven't been great so far, but they've only played one game. Chicago, not the greatest defensive team, not a lot going for them. And the really nice thing about Florida 1 is that Carter Verhaeghe is just 2,900. Anthony Duclair just 2,700. They looked pretty good in their first game. Carter Verhaeghe scored a goal and then got it taken away. It was given to Aaron Ekblad, but if he scores a goal at 2,900, obviously tremendous value there. Duclair and Verhaeghe, two guys that like to shoot the puck, two guys with tremendous speed. I think that's going to be a pretty good line for Florida if they stay together. So I really like that value there in a good matchup with Lankinen making his debut and the Blackhawks just not being very good defensively. So Florida 1, definitely in play because they allow you to cram in some of these higher price lines. Like you can easily fit Florida 1 with Colorado 1. And I really like that option tonight. So Florida 1, definitely one of my favorite value stacks on tonight's slate. I don't think I'm going to go down to Florida 2. Obviously, if Florida 1's in a good spot, Florida 2 is in an equally good spot. But I just, I like a lot more what you're getting with Barkov and two shooters on his line than, what you're getting with Huberdeau. Although I would not hesitate to put Huberdeau maybe and make that stack even bigger, try to do a power play stack against the Blackhawks. So if I'm going to play Florida 1, it's going to be Florida 1. And yeah, I have interest in Bobrovsky as well. Obviously, I just don't think that Chicago has enough scoring options. I mean, if we pull up their lines here, just not a lot going on there. They're still trying to figure out how life is going to work without Jonathan Taves and Kirby Dach. And yeah, it's not pretty right now. So obviously I have interest in Bobrovsky. I think he's only 8,200. I shouldn't say only 8,200. I think he's 8,200, pretty expensive, but just in a great spot. This team is not very good, but Bobrovsky, if you shy away from him because it's his first start of the year, I would not blame you there. So let's go to the second game here. Pittsburgh and Washington. This is another spot where I like Pittsburgh. I've liked them a lot this year. They haven't really done anything, but I have Pittsburgh 1 ranked pretty high on this slate. When you've got, obviously, again, it's another situation where you're going to have to keep an eye on warm-ups. Kasperi Kapanen just 3,100. If he's playing with Sidney Crosby and Jake Gensel, that's amazing. 3,100. Evan Rodriguez looked really good in that spot. That's the only reason I don't know for sure if Kapanen's going to be there, but I would imagine they're not, too tied to Evan Rodriguez on that top line. So Kapanen at 3,100, terrific value. And it's a line in a really good spot tonight. Let's just see who they're going to see. They're expected to see the majority of the Ovechkin line tonight, but just kind of a sprinkle of the top 6. Washington, they've been pretty decent so far. Their defensive numbers are solid, so it's not like a super plus matchup for the Penguins. But if you look here, obviously Penguins' offensive numbers, at least Pittsburgh 1's offensive numbers, just outstanding. Pittsburgh 2's offensive numbers also really good, and I think that they'll be pretty low owned tonight. They'll be lower owned than Pittsburgh 1, I would imagine, especially with Kapanen playing on that line. But Malkin just hasn't looked right yet, and I think that's part of the reason why their ownership will be low. So I think you could definitely go to Pittsburgh 2. They're much cheaper. Actually, they're not much cheaper. They're only $500 cheaper if you full stack them. But Malkin just hasn't looked right yet. Sidney Crosby and Gensel have been getting it done early on. So I still prefer Pittsburgh 1 in this spot. And my dog's barking. Sorry about that. But yeah, Pittsburgh 1 definitely in a good spot. Washington 1, equally good spot. Casey Smith has looked pretty strong right now. Washington won in Pittsburgh. This whole trio just all grouped together here. So they're all obviously among some of my favorite plays this evening. The one thing that I don't like, some of you might if you're a Tom Wilson fan, but he goes back to the top line tonight. They bumped TJ Oshie down to the third line. They're trying to get that Lars Eller line going. So bumping TJ Oshie down there is the way to do that. So Tom Wilson up on the top line. He's in play because of that, but I never play Tom Wilson, ever. 5,100. If he scores and burns me, he scores and burns me. But I like Ovechkin and Backstrom as a mini. You can go, power play stack as well. Pittsburgh Penguins just have not looked very good. Cody Cece's out or healthy scratched again. Mike Matheson's out, so maybe their blue line will look a little bit better, but they haven't. They were not good at the start of the season. So I think this is definitely a spot where you can go to Washington because Pittsburgh's just looked terrible. Luke says, "Do you stack every night?" Yeah, I mean it's if you're playing GPPs, it's the only way to really do it. There's different ways to stack. I mean, you could do 3 mini stacks to try to get exposure to different games. You can do 2 full line stacks. The correlation improves your upside drastically. Obviously, if you get a goal, the guys that are on the line with them are most likely going to get the assist, or the defensemen that are on the ice with them, they're the only guys that can get the assist. So stacking just increases your upside, your lineup upside, increases your chances of winning. So, you definitely want to be stacking players together that are going to play together at 5v5, preferably. Obviously, on the power play helps as well. And then, there's just different variations of stacks. Sometimes you can do 3 2-man stacks, and because some of these lines are built where it's like there's only 2 guys that you're really interested in, and that's a way to get exposure to different games. So yeah, you want to stack, but you just want to do it in different ways. Malkin or Ranton tonight. Malkin will put up points at some point. Yeah, he definitely will at some point. But Ranton in tonight for me, I really like Colorado 1, as you can see here. Colorado 1 grades as my 3rd best line. We can talk a little bit about Colorado here. So they're expected to see a lot of the Anze Kopitar line, which obviously isn't great. If you guys know Anze Kopitar, very good 2-way center, but their numbers, they're solid. 25 scoring chances against per 60, very good numbers for Kopitar's line, pretty solid. But, Colorado 1's line numbers are so good, they're matchup proof. It doesn't really matter. They just put up 8 goals against the Blues, who are a really stout defensive team. So I am not worried about Anze Kopitar on this spot. So I would go Rantanen over Malkin. Stacking Philly yesterday was not a great idea. I found out, I think that's a decent opportunity to go back to them. I think a lot of people got burned by Philly last night, and you would imagine that Alain Vigneault will get them, up for tonight's game and playing a lot better than they did last night. That's the one thing that's weird about this year. Like if you're out of a game early, like there's no crowd to get you back into it. Like it's so hard. You can't like go crush somebody and the crowd goes wild and all of a sudden you got a little momentum boost or momentum shift. There's no way to get back into a game. Would Colorado 2 be technically a better play numbers wise? I don't like Colorado 2 tonight because Burakovsky's out. I don't mind Burakovsky. I don't mind Colorado 2 usually when Burakovsky's there, but without Burakovsky, it just doesn't have the same flavor to me. So Colorado 1 for me. Ray Rock says the Flyers were abysmal. Yeah, they were total trash last night. But you have those nights sometimes. It happens. So where were we? Okay, so now let's talk about the Flyers and the Sabres. In this game, I don't really like either team very much. If you see here, where did it go? Matchups. Added this in today. Pace. It's kind of just I wouldn't buy into it too fully just yet. It's something I'm trying out based on my projected outcomes for all of these lines. I'm trying to figure out which games will be the most high event. If you look here, Buffalo and Philadelphia grades out to be one of the lower event games. Detroit and Columbus as the lowest, with New York and New Jersey as the highest there. So we'll see how this goes. It's something I'm trying. But so far the projections have been really good. And I would imagine if the projections are really good, the pace should follow right in line there. So this just looks like kind of a low event game. Buffalo and Philadelphia don't have a lot of interest. Philadelphia's lines are, who knows, or anybody's guess at this point. They shifted things around in the third period. We'll have to find out in warmups exactly how their lines shake out, but I don't really have a ton of interest. If Morgan Frost is in a premium spot, I think he's only 2,700. maybe going back there. He had put up a donut yesterday and burned a ton of people. I would imagine, with his skill set, that he would at least get a couple shots on goal and maybe pay off his price. But I just think that the Flyers, the lines are going to be such a mess, and they're going to be just in a blender all game, that you might not want to be targeting them and stacking them in certain spots. I don't have a ton of interest in Buffalo. One, they looked honestly unbelievable last night, but everyone's going to play them again tonight, I think, because they're going to chase that game. And without Couturier, it's obviously a little bit better lineup. I do have a little bit of interest on just because Brian Elliott isn't very good. He didn't look very good last night, let in one of the softest goals I've ever seen. But I think their ownership will be just a little too high for me. And if we look here, Philadelphia's defensive numbers aren't terrible. So I'm not going to go to Buffalo one tonight. There's just too many other good spots, and their ownership will most likely be pretty high because I think they're still fairly reasonably priced. I think Reinhardt's only like 4,000. So they're going to be popular. So Taylor Hall's only 6,800 still. Yeah, Reinhardt only 4,000. Reinhardt's going to be crazy high owned after last night's game. So I'm not going there, especially just it doesn't look like it's going to be a very high-paced game. One game that should be high-paced, though, is the Jets and Sens. As I mentioned at the top of the show, really like the Jets' top line tonight. Again, keep an eye on things. Keep an eye on the lines. If Andrew Kopp's there, you can still play Andrew Kopp at 3,700. The thing about playing Andrew Kopp is you can stack Winnipeg 1 with another really high-priced line. Like Colorado 1, you can try to cram them in there together if you do play Andrew Kopp, because Wheeler and Scheifele are still really cheap, and it looks like a spot where they could absolutely smash the Senators. Obviously, the Senators have looked pretty strong early on, and that's fine, but still early. And I don't expect the Senators to be very good defensively. I think this could turn into a shootout, 100%. And with Brossoit going for the Jets, I think this is an opportune time to game stack this game, because I think the Senators are still going to get their chances as well. But let's take a look at Winnipeg here. So Winnipeg won. Obviously, their offensive numbers are just terrific. But then you look across here. I mean, it's all blue on the Senators side, defensive side of the puck, and blue means good. We want to go after blue. You look up here, you got Buffalo all in the red, all strong defensive lines. That's why you don't want to be probably playing Philadelphia tonight. But Ottawa all in the blue here, all high numbers. I mean, their top line giving up 29.9 scoring chances against per 60. That is an ideal spot for Winnipeg 1, which makes them just an outstanding play tonight. If you want to go down to Winnipeg 2, I think you can. Again, I think what's going to happen is it's all going to matter how the lines shake out. If Kyle Connor's on that second line, you can still play Kyle Connor. I think if he's on that second line, you can still play Kyle Connor with Winnipeg 1 and correlate on the power play. But if Kyle Connor's on that top line and they stack the top line, then you're going to love that top line, but you have no interest in Winnipeg 2 at that point. I mean, it's going to be like Paul Stastny and Andrew Kopp and Nick Ehlers. It just doesn't do much for me. So it's all Winnipeg 1 for me in that spot. If we want to look at Ottawa, their lines, it all depends. Ottawa 1 doesn't grade out great tonight, but I don't know. I still like them just because Kachuk's shot volume is so good, and Norris and Batherson are so cheap, and they're all on Ottawa's top power play. So for me, that's a pretty good spot to get a really cheap. They're just such a fun stack, right? Like, they're all in the top power play unit together. They're so cheap, and Brady Tkachuk can absolutely rip it up. So I think if I was going to play without Stutzel in the lineup, or however anybody wants to pronounce his name, I'm still working on it. I have no interest in Ottawa too. Stepan, Dadonov is ridiculously cheap. I gotta even check if that's even right. Dadonov's 2,600, then probably should play him. Yeah, he is. He's 2,600. That's ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a spot where you play. Maybe you have one power play stack for Ottawa because Dadonov is 2,600, Norris is in the 3,000s, and yeah, 3,200, and Dadonov's 2,600. I mean, what a cheap power play stack. I don't think you'll ever do that. You can full stack that with Shabbat, and hopefully they lay Brossoit up. So literally coming onto the show, I didn't have a lot of interest in Ottawa, and now I have a ton. That is insane. Those prices are crazy. Morrissey or Pionk. If you're stacking Winnipeg 1, definitely Morrissey. He was on the top power play unit. I'll get to the defenseman a little bit later in the show, but Morrissey is one of my favorite deep plays tonight. I believe he's only 3,900. He was on the top power play unit last night. They kind of switched things up with line A out. So definitely Morrissey. He looked really good last night, and they just got to get some goals for all those guys to just absolutely go off tonight. They were right there last night, so many chances. It was frustrating playing them. I had so much ownership on Winnipeg 1, and then obviously Frederick Anderson was struggling, and then I play Winnipeg against him, and he stands on his head. So that's that. Should I trade Olofsson for someone like Kreider or Oshie? So season-long question. I wouldn't trade Olofsson just yet. I think obviously a lot of his value is tied to playing with Eichel and Hall. And Reinhardt looked really good there last night. So, if he continues to look really good, then it's probably not going to happen at that point. But I wouldn't panic yet. Like, I don't like making trades like 1 week into the season. There's just not enough, knowledge yet. We just don't know what's happening. Everything changes. Everything is so fluid still. Speaking of Kreider, though, we've got the New York Rangers and the New Jersey Devils. If we go back to this, we look at the pace. It's supposed to be the highest pace game. So, should be an opportunity to get a lot of, get some good plays in here. Again, New York 2, Grey Toes is my second best stack of the night. Alexis Lafreniere, 3,300 really makes that go for me. So we've got them expected to see 57% of New Jersey 1. If we look at New Jersey's defensive stats, New Jersey 1, look at this. I mean, just same as Ottawa. It's all blue over here, especially New Jersey 3, really brutal. Ever since I traded Blake Coleman, really, that line just has not been the same. So I think that, look at these numbers for the Rangers. All averaging over 30 scoring chances, 4 per 60, just outstanding. But for me, it's got to be New York 2. I think you can definitely sprinkle in some New York 1, but getting Lafreniere in there at 3,300 just, allows you to get so much else, so many other high price pieces in there with them. Kreider 4,800, Subban at 8,100, Buchnevich 5,600. It's just so much more money, right? I mean, you're paying $3,000 more, and the upside is the same, if not less. So I like Rangers 1 a lot. New Jersey 1 pops off a little bit, but I actually like Alexander Georgiev and net tonight, so I'm probably not going to play too many Rangers. But this, I don't even know how to pronounce the name, Sherganovich, has looked really good on the top line so far. So if you're going to play New Jersey, I think that's really the only place you can go. The rest of their lines just don't look that great. They don't look that appealing. There's not a lot of correlation, power play and stuff like that. So Pavel Zach is a really good two-way center, but doesn't provide a lot of offense, really zaps a lot of Gusev's value. And the same goes with Zajac. I mean, he's over the hill and he's just plays in such a defensive role. So no interest in anybody other than New Jersey 1. But again, I like Georgiev tonight, so I'm probably not going to go there. Sorry for the newbie question, but are there more productive positions within power play lines? You score more on the blue line, or is it for? Yeah, so the one thing you want to look at, obviously anybody on the power play can score at any given time because there's a number of ways to score. But when you're watching games, just pay attention to the guys that are at the top of the power play. Those are the guys that usually get, that are the shooters on the power play unit. So if we want to use Winnipeg as an example tonight, without line A, it was basically going from Kyle Connor back to the point to Morrissey over to Scheifele. And those three were taking all the shots. So the chances of them scoring are most likely higher than somebody like Paul Stastny, who's parked in front of the net, Blake Wheeler, who kind of just rovers around. He's kind of the bumper position sometimes it's Stastny. So it would be like, if we're talking about Winnipeg, Kyle Connor, obviously he's the guy they really try to feed when line A's out. Scheifele on the other side looked really reluctant to shoot the puck last night, but that's not normally his MO. So I expect them to be pretty good. But yeah, anybody that's kind of at the top of the circle there that's in kind of a shooter's role are the guys you're going to want to target. On Daily Faceoff, we do kind of provide some of that information. It's a little hard to break up because we don't have the diamond shape, but we try to show who's on the point and stuff. And usually those guys will get at least more shot attempts. But again, the puck can just end up on somebody's stick in front of the net and they can score on the power play at any time. So Columbus and Detroit. This was a pretty interesting game yesterday. For noon, nobody really cares about Detroit or Columbus, you'd think, and it was a pretty entertaining game. So I don't really have a lot of interest, though. I think Merzlikins is a pretty good play. I don't remember his price. Let me just pull that up. He's up there. Yeah, 8,100. He's an okay play. I think I would, if I'm gonna pay up at goalie, I think I'm just gonna go to Grubauer. I don't like the Kings that much offensively, so I think that the Avalanche should run away with that game. So I'm going to pay up to goalie. I'm probably going to Grubauer. I probably won't have too much Merzlikins or Bobrovsky unless you need that couple extra 100, and I think they're fine. If you want to go crazy and punt a goalie tonight, I actually don't mind Jonathan Bernier. The Wings goaltending has looked really good so far. Bernier looked really strong in his first game. Thomas Greiss, or if you want to talk like Pierre McGuire, Greiss looked really good last night, or yesterday, I should say. And the one thing that's really interesting about Detroit is right now, at least just through 3 games, the sample size is really small, but they're giving up a ton of shots, which is great for the goalies, right? Like if you're playing them, but they've been actually doing a really good job at limiting like the high quality chances. I mean, they're giving up tons of shots from the outside, but you know, the actual scoring chances and high danger scoring chances are fairly low, like, around league average, but they're giving up like 37 shots a game. So you would expect there to be more scoring chances, but they've actually been doing a pretty good job. So if they continue to do that, and Columbus is a team that has struggled so far early on to generate high danger chances. So this looks like a spot where Bernier at, I think, 6,800 could be a really decent punt option in net, because he's a guy that can hit the bonus for 35 saves. He could see a lot of rubber tonight and just pick up a lot of saves. And then if he wins, obviously, that's even better. But if he hits a 35-point save bonus, then he pays off his value right there. And it looks like, just, based on the underlying numbers right now, it looks like a pretty decent opportunity with the way the Red Wings actually have been defending okay, which is shocking. But again, not a whole lot of interest in this game. The one line that I would maybe target, obviously Detroit 1's kind of always in play. They always pop off because their underlying numbers are great, but they're just like so expensive. They're like Montreal 1. Like they're like expensive enough where it like makes you not want to play them, even though their underlying numbers are good. One line that does look pretty interesting to me is Foligno, Texier, Bjorkstrand. Foligno and Texier have been phenomenal to start the season. Like, they're generating scoring chances at a ridiculous rate. And then you add Bjorkstrand into the mix. I think that's a really interesting line if you want to target that game. I think that's probably where I'd go. Dubois, he could just get benched at any minute. He doesn't look all that interesting. He did score a goal yesterday. It was very nice, but I'm not paying for him. If you're going to play Columbus, I do like this third line. And they're super duper cheap. Man, there's so many pages. I always get lost here. So yeah, they are 11,000 to stack. They're all, even Bjorkstrand only 4,300. If you want a one-off play tonight, like if you stack elsewhere and get your defenseman involved, you need a one-off play. Bjorkstrand at 4,300, definitely a strong option. As rule of thumb, the center and the defenseman on the PP are good starting points for DFS PP stacking. Yes, pretty much. Like, you want like stacking a defenseman, especially if they're like reasonably priced, like Morrissey is tonight at 3,900. Getting them in there as a shooter on that power play is a good way to get exposure to that top power play unit. If you're stacking Winnipeg 1, I wouldn't mind putting Connor in there if you can fit him. But if you put Connor in and can't fit in some of these other high price lines like New York Rangers 2 or Colorado 1, so if you stack like Scheifele, Morrissey, and Wheeler, still pretty good. It's like almost like having Connor. And then you can get another good spot. So I like having Morrissey. I like obviously correlating my defenseman on the power play where you can. Some of them obviously just a little bit too expensive. Colorado 1 obviously looks terrific. Colorado 2, like I said, not a lot of interest with Burakovsky out. I don't think I need to talk too much about this game. Colorado 1 is going to get a ton of ownership tonight. They're in a terrific spot. They look great. They're really expensive, but there are spots out there that you can fit them in. Problem is, it's going to be hard for you to fit like somebody like Makar in there with them. If you need to go down a little bit, I think Devon Taves, he provides like $900 in salary savings from Makar. He's been playing with Makar at 5v5. That D pair is played almost exclusively with Colorado 1, so you're not going to get the power play correlation, but you are going to get really strong even strength correlation. So I really think that Devon Taves is a pretty reasonable option. Kind of like I think he's 5,100. What's the best cash game strategy? I don't play a lot of cash, so I don't know for sure. You'd have to ask somebody who plays a lot of cash. For me, though, when I did play cash, I like doing a couple of like the smaller stacks. Just 2-man stacks, a couple mini stacks, because you still get that correlation if they score a goal, but you don't get the whole line in there for like the crazy GPP correlation that where you're trying to get, if they go off and you win a tournament. That's what you're looking for. Where cash, maybe some smaller stacks is a good way to go. Spreads you out a little bit more. But the one thing about cash is always you're trying to find guys with good shot volume. Like, you don't want to play Joe Thornton at 3,400 or whatever. Like, he doesn't play tonight, but that's just an example. He doesn't shoot a lot, right? So it's so hard for him he has to pick up a point to hit value, where other guys that shoot a lot, they can hit value without scoring. They can hit the 5-shot bonus. So like the last couple of days, like Mike Hoffman, he was like 4,300 or whatever. That's like, okay. So Bjorkstrand tonight, for example, 4,200 or whatever he is. He's a good cash game option because he's a volume shooter. So guys like that, Alex DePrincat, 5,300. I don't love the spot, but Somebody like that. Volume shooters are typically the guys you want to round out your lineups with. Somebody like Ovechkin's a good, kind of anchor for your lineups. And then obviously D, you want to find some guys that block shots, but that's what you're trying to do with D pretty much all the time anyway, if they're not playing on the top power play unit. But speaking of D, so yeah, I think that what's his name? Devon Taves is a pretty good spot, 5,100. If you can't pay up for McCarr, fit him in there. I like Aaron Ekblad a lot on that top power play unit for the Panthers, but he's 5,800. It's going to be so hard to get there. So I think Keith Yandel, if they continue to roll out that 2-man power play unit, I think Keith Yandel is a pretty good option at 4,500. It all depends who you play. Brian Dumoulin's been one of my favorite punts to start the season when he was like 3,100. He's bumped all the way up to 4,100. So I don't love it, but I would still go there if you can fit that in. If he's like your last D-man, Brian Dumoulin's a guy who does get shots. He does block shots, but 3,900 Josh Morrissey's probably my favorite D play of the night. If you're going down even lower though, it gets ugly down there for sure. But I do like John Merrill. I think he's 2,600, so basically minimum price for Detroit. He's blocked 2 shots per game. He is on PP2. He's minimum price, and he could easily block 3 shots a night, pay off value, and allows you to cram in a bunch of other spots. So John Merrill is probably my favorite, like super deep punt. I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to play somebody like Sami Niku. If you can't fit Josh Morrissey in your stack and you want to play Niku, he does see some even strength time with Morrissey and Winnipeg won. So Niku at 2,700, he's a guy that has some offensive flair, just hasn't really figured out how to put the puck in the net or pick up points at the NHL level yet. But if you need to punt 2 super cheap D-men, those are probably my favorites. Gavrikhov is another guy that I really like. I was just going to mention him because he is only 2,600, and by the looks of things, he's going to be playing with Seth Jones tonight, which really helps. And he's a guy that blocks a ton of shots as well. So Gavrikhov is another guy. He's blocked at least 1 shot every single game this season, and if he sees a bump in minutes by playing with Seth Jones, and that obviously makes him a terrific play at 2,600 as well. So those are my 3 super cheap D-men that I would go with. Gudas and Myers aren't bad as punts either. I've always liked playing Phil Myers, but I just 2,500. Yeah, he is super cheap again tonight. Definitely a pretty decent option as well. So there's a lot of super cheap punty options out there tonight. You just got to kind of pick the right ones because there are some high price options out there that you're going to need to fit some of these really cheap guys in. What do I think of PK Subban? I like PK Subban. 4,600. He's been shooting quite a bit this year. He's been, the thing about PK is, he's on the top power play unit. So if you are playing in New Jersey or you're playing like a Jack Hughes, Palmieri mini stack, definitely get Subban in there. The thing about Subban, he's played 30 and 26 minutes so far this year. So you're getting a ton of ice time. And he does shoot the puck. He's a guy that could, hit the 5-shot bonus from a defenseman on any given night because that's just kind of his game. He likes to shoot the puck. But let's talk about goalies a little bit now to wrap up today's show. Again, if you have any questions, fire them in here. We're coming up on 40 minutes. So I got to get back to the Twitter and make sure that Buffalo confirms their goalie soon. So again, if you're new to the show, we bring these probabilities via Dom Lucision of The Athletic. Just tries to help us find some value goalies based on his probabilities, which are usually bang on. His model seems to really like the Penguins, so he loves Casey DeSmith at 7,700 tonight. I don't love it, but I think that could obviously, whenever you got Pittsburgh and Washington together, it could be a high-scoring game. I'm not going to go to Carter Hutton if he starts. If he doesn't, I actually do like Linus Ullmark. I think that's just going to be a low-scoring game. I'm not going to play Matt Murray. I'm not going to play Bressois. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. I do like Georgiev if I'm not playing the Devils. 7,800, he does provide quite a bit of salary relief from Grubauer. He's probably, my favorite mid-priced goalie tonight. He's got a history of success against the Devils, sorry. And it looks like a spot where the Rangers are going to win that game. So Georgiev at 7,800 is probably as low as I'm going to go unless I need to, unless I'm trying to play like Rangers 2 or Winnipeg 1 with Colorado 1 and I need to get super punchy with the goalie, then I honestly think I am going to go to Jonathan Bernier tonight and just hope that he stops like 35 of 38 shots and picks up like 11 points or whatever the hell that would be. But if we have any other questions here in the next minute, I'll get to those. But if not, that's pretty much it. While I wait for a question, I should go check and make sure that Buffalo hasn't confirmed their goalie yet, which they haven't. So that's good. All right. Looks like no more questions. So that will be the end of today's DFO DFS show. Again, sorry about not being able to come on yesterday. I hope you guys still had some success without me. I'm sure you did. Columbus 1 or New York Rangers 2? Definitely Rangers 2 for me on this slate. I really like Rangers 2 a lot. So for me, Rangers 2. I don't love Dubois. Just like I do love him as a player, but I don't know where the motivation is right now. He wants to be traded. We've seen towards bench him already, so that scares me a little bit. And I just think the Rangers second line's in such a good spot that definitely Rangers 1 for me. But yeah, looks like that right at 40 minutes. So thanks again for coming and joining me for the DFO DFS show. I will be going live again tomorrow at 5:15. So long as there's no early starts, I don't believe there is. But yeah, good luck to everybody tonight. Let's win some money, and we'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Have a great day.